if your hair has been dry, I got the remedy on how to fix that. Turns out most of us are not properly moisturizing our hair at all. Your hair likely is growing, but if you're not properly moisturizing, it dries up and breaks off and you're not retaining length. Trust me, I know. Joining us once again is board certified dermatologist, NIH SOCS DF supported alopecia researcher. Now, excuse my lisp because, you know, I got Invisalign. And author of the book 90 Days to Beautiful Curly Hair, Dr. Crystal Aguh. She's been on the channel before, dropping some gems when it comes to hair care. Timestamps are listed in the description to make this video easier to navigate, and if you need to rewatch something, again, you can, you know, it's in the description. How often should we be moisturizing our hair?
I generally recommend different moisturizing frequencies based on your curl pattern. So for example, generically, if you are type 3 curl, you might only have to moisturize your hair in between washes 2 to 3 times, right? So that's if you're doing a once a week frequency. If you're washing your hair twice a week, then you may be able to just get away with one leave-in conditioner treatment between washes. If you are type 4, moisturizing is really, really important. A lot of times I'll tell my patients moisturize 5 to 7 times a week, just because I know if you're thinking 7 times a week, you'll do it 4 times a week, right? But you really want to aim for as frequently as possible, because as you probably know, when you're a type 4 curl, your hair doesn't really stay moisturized from wash to wash. You have to do things in the middle of the week to make sure that you get that moisture retention.
Now, to keep it a buck, this 5 to 7 times a week moisturizing thing got me shook. Before entering Dr. Aguh for this interview, I had actually read her book, you know, 90 Days to Beautiful Curly Hair. It's gonna be linked in the description box. And I had already started on my new moisturizing regimen. Now, I ain't never been good at styling hair. You know, I leave that to the pros. The hair is feeling luxurious. It's not feeling as dry. Even my hairstylist was like, girl, what you been putting in your hair? It's so good. But that mess ain't happen overnight.
Sometimes I'll have patients and I'll say, tell me what your conditioning regimen is like. They're like, well, when I'm not in braids, I deep condition every week for the 2 weeks before I'm back in braids. And I'm like, well, it's gonna be hard for you to see that improvement because you really need to see the benefit over time. It's kind of like embarking on a healthy eating journey, right? And if you're like, well, I ate a salad every day for a week, I don't know why I'm not seeing results. It's because you kind of need time for things to really kick in and to see that progress. But if you start moisturizing your hair consistently 3, 5, 7 times a week, especially 7 times for the 4C girls, then you are really over time going to see that, one, you're going to cut down on your detangling time, right? So maybe instead of an hour detangling session, maybe it's 30 or 15 minutes because your hair's just always moisturized. And you're going to see less breakage over time. So really important, not only to moisturize frequently, but then to really make that consistent.
So just like you can't do push-ups for a week and expect to have Angela Bassett arms, you can't have acid on the moisturizer. So you're sold. You need to moisturize your hair more. But what do you use? And hint, some of them oils might not be doing what you think they'd be doing.
One of the most common things that people will do incorrectly when it comes to moisturizing their hair is applying oil to dry hair. So I like to give people that image of applying baby oil to dry skin, and it kind of just makes your skin more dry, and the oil just sits on top of your skin and you're like, ugh, like everything I touch, it's everywhere, right? Oil really is doing a great job at holding moisture in, and moistures really come in the form of water, right? And so we talk about that LOC or LCO approach, where the first thing you want to put on your hair is some form of liquid. So something that has water. This can actually be water in a spray bottle, right? It can actually be like water in a light, like lotion, leave-in conditioner lotion or cream, or a leave-in conditioner spray. So you always want to wet the hair first before you put in oil. And this is really important to think about, because I feel like at baseline, a lot of women with curly hair, whether it's naturally curly or relaxed, are taught to be afraid of water. But no, water is our friend. We're just going to repurpose it to make sure that it works in our favor. So some water containing product first, then an oil, and then you can follow that with a cream, or alternatively, water first, and then a cream, and then an oil. If you notice in my book, I don't talk a lot about essential oils. Essential oils are things like rosemary oil, tea tree oil, lavender. Those are oils that people will read about and they'll say, oh, I heard this helps with hair growth, so I'm just gonna slather it all over my hair. The thing about essential oils, they're medicinal, and medicinal oils do not do a good job of holding in moisture and actually can make the hair drier. So when I talk about oils in my LOC or LCO routine, I'm really talking about things like argan oil, which is phenomenal for type 3 hair and type 4 hair. It's really like the all-purpose go-to oil. Like you could type 1 hair, type 2 hair, you could tell all your friends about argan oil. Jojoba oil is great. Grapeseed oil, olive oil is phenomenal, but I would really limit that to women with type 4 hair. I would not put olive oil on type 3 hair because I think it's a little bit heavy. Amla oil is a nice oil as well that people can use, but these are oils that you're going to apply to hair that's already slightly damp by either your leave-in conditioner spray or your leave-in conditioner cream.
Now let's get into some product recommendations.
Let's start with the babies. The babies and the kids, because I have a baby now. I like Cantu Kids. And honestly, sometimes I use my daughter's Cantu Kids leave-in conditioner spray. And so that's a good line. I think if you're type 3, right, fine hair, loose curl, I would stick with a spray, right? I wouldn't, for type 3 hair, I would not recommend using any butters, but for your L, I would stick with a spray of some sort. If you're type 4, then if you're type 4 normal or high density, you can use like a thick, like conditioning cream that still has water as its first ingredient. If you're type 4 low density, very fine hair, so you can tell if you have fine or coarse hair. If you have fine hair, especially if it's type 4, people are going to tell you it feels like cotton. It doesn't really hold styles all that well, and it feels super soft. So you don't want to use anything heavy. I would use a light lotion. Miel Organics has a great leave-in conditioner lotion. Throwback African Pride has a great leave-in conditioner lotion. And then again, if you're type 4 high density, you can use a cream. I should not neglect to mention one of my go-to leave-in conditioner sprays, which is the Luster's S-Curl No Drip Activator. So I talk a lot in my book about Jerry Curl Juice, and Jerry Curl Juice is really just a leave-in conditioner spray that's heavy on glycerin, and glycerin is pulling in moisture from the environment to give you even more moisture in your hair strands. They used to call them activators because when people texturized their hair or got a Jerry curl, they were told if you infuse your hair with a lot of moisturizer, your curl will pop. So that's why it's activated, right? So things that say, activator are really, really good at moisturizing our curly strands.
Now I'm 4C high density, and child, she wasn't joking about this S-Curl moisturizer activator. This mess is, well, I can't even call it a mess. This is a dream, and it's very inexpensive. I use this on my hair when I wear it curly, or if it's in, braided down for a wig hairstyle or something. I'll tell you exactly how I use it later on in the video. So we got a LCO or LOC every single time.
Sometimes you can skip a letter. Remember, because the L is just a water containing product, right? So technically your L can be your C as well, right? So you're kind of doubling up. So in that case, you can do a leave-in conditioner lotion and follow with an oil. When you use a leave-in conditioner lotion, you're basically combining your L and C into one product. I know I mentioned in a couple of different ways, but there's so many variations because you could also have an LOB, with the B being butter, right? Butters are things like shea butter. There are other types of butters, but I think shea butter and shea butter derivatives, where they mix a ton of butters, are really the most popular butters. And those are fantastic for type 4 hair. And so really there's this whole continuum of hair density and hair dryness, right? And the more dense your hair is, so the thicker it is, the coarser it is, and the tighter the curl, the thicker you're going to want your cream and or your butter to be. If we start at the other end of the spectrum and we look at type 3 fine hair, what would my approach be for people with that hair type? I would say you're doing a whole LOC is variable. You may decide to combine, if you do use a cream, make your cream your L as well. So you're going to do a light lotion and an oil. That's it, right? You might even do a thicker spray with glycerin and an oil, right? So that you're really just doing 2 products. And I do also like this for kids who tend to have finer hair that's a little bit less curly, because kids kind of grow into their curl pattern. As we move down the continuum, let's say we're like in 3C, 4A land, or maybe you're a 4C, but you have very fine hair. That's when you are going to really probably consistently stick with the 3 letters, but you're not going to do a butter, right? Your cream is going to be a light lotion, or if you want to do an L and a C separately, you're going to do a spray, an oil, and then a light lotion cream. And then as you move further down, again, high density, coarser hair, 4C, then you're really being intentional about using probably 3 different products and doing that 5 times a week, where you're doing your L, but your L also might be a lotion and then an oil and then a butter. As we get further down, again, the ability for hair to really hold in moisture just becomes more difficult. And so you're just really applying a lot of that conditioner manually throughout the week.
Okay, y'all, how you doing? Did you get that? Ain't no shame in rewatching that part over again so that you get it. So I have a 4C high density hair, and I typically do the LCO. Now, sometimes I may just do the L and the O, and sometimes I may just do the C and the O. But the main point of what Dr. Aguh just said was, the thicker your hair, the tighter your curl, the thicker your cream and or butter needs to be. So basically, if you have fine hair, you don't want to go weighing it down with products. And if you have very thick hair, them loose little waters, they ain't doing a damn thing. For example, here is what I use after reading Dr. Aguh's book. I'll shampoo with this or this. I'll deep condition with this or this. I'll do a protein treatment with either this or this. After I do a protein treatment or a deep condition, I'll rinse out with this. While my hair is wet, I will do a leave-in conditioner, either this, or this. And while we're here, can y'all tell me what the internet natural hair community got against Cantu? Cause, you know, my own personal knowledge comes from skincare and a lot of the misinformation that can come out about certain skincare products and ingredients. I'm not that well versed on the hair stuff, but I do know that people try to down the Cantu, and I just want to know why. I assume there's a lot of misinformation about ingredients, but y'all tell me. After I've moisturized, I'll typically seal with this oil. I'll use this on wash day and throughout the week on my scalp as needed. During the week, I'll re-moisturize with one of the leave-in conditioners and seal it with the oil. But I'll also sometimes do something that Dr. Aguh calls the greenhouse in her book. And basically what I do is I'll dampen my hair, I'll spray on my Jerry Curl juice, and then I'll put a plastic cap on my hair overnight. And when I tell you the infusion of the hydration in my hair. But as you can imagine, I would only do that when I'm wearing my hair curly or if it's in braids, like, you know, for a wig. Now, I highly recommend getting Dr. Aguh's book because it has a lot of information that you can easily refer back to. Now, speaking for me, myself personally, all this moisturizing is cool and all when my hair is curly or I got it braided down. But what about when I want to heat style my hair, want to press it? What do I do then?
I think many of us have had blowouts or straightening, even if it's just for like a wedding. And we're just like, all right, let me just maintain it because I spent a lot of money on it. And what I would recommend is I would skip like a water-like spray, right? Because what you're looking for is you don't want your hair to be like drenched, but you still have to get a little bit of moisture. I would recommend a very light lotion followed by a butter. The downside is, and you maybe do that just once or twice in a week because you don't want your hair to get so weighed down by products that it starts to look stringy. But one alternative is actually just for that week, just to not do like a leave-in conditioner spray. Like I totally get it, right? I think it's very important to make a healthy hair routine fit in with your life. Everything in moderation with an emphasis on healthy hair practices. I think that if you're gonna get your hair straight for a week, I think it's fine to take a break on that.
Some of y'all won't take hair advice unless the person giving it has long, thick hair, long all the way down to their toenails. There's something about the reality of hair that you really need to understand.
And it's such a important phenomenon because you also see it in people who start their own hair care brands. They're often people who have always had long, thick hair, no matter what they use, right? And I definitely fell victim to this as a kid. I'm a person too. I saw the Just For Me box and I was like, man, okay, like I'm not happy with my hair, but maybe if I use this relaxer, it's gonna look like the girl on the box. It's gonna look like Rudy from the Huxtables, right? Some people they just have it, right? But you have to think about getting, success advice from someone who was born into a family of billionaires, right? They're gonna say, look, all you have to do is invest in the right companies. And you're like, well, I can't even pay my rent. So where am I going to get the money to invest, right? I think as humans, we have this natural tendency to want to look to people that have what we want and hope that if we just do what they do, we can get there. But I will tell you from a personal perspective, I'm in this space because it wasn't until I was probably 28 or 29 that the world even saw my hair. Right? Because I definitely have the hair that was not viewed as beautiful. And people would tell me like, ooh, just cover that up. Don't do that. Right. And so I did the research as a dermatologist because I was trying to learn for myself. And so I do think that as someone enters a healthy hair journey, I think that you have to first start out by identifying like what your goals are. Right. So if you've had a difficult time your entire life, remember our hair is most resilient when we're young. So if you think back to your preteen years, and if your hair was short and breaking then, it's unlikely that as a 35 or 40-year-old, even with doing all the right things, that your hair will grow past your hips, right? I think the important thing is, how can I get my hair to its fullest potential, right? And it's a journey, right? But incorporating the healthiest hair practices is really important. And I think that if you know that you've struggled with hair growth for a long time, you also know that you can't half step it, that you're not going to be able to get away with like doing some of the things that maybe the bloggers who like, honestly, they have 20 product deals because their hair looks great no matter what they do, right? You're not going to be able to necessarily follow that. You might have to do more or something different. And it is tough because even within the natural hair community, 4C hair is not really embraced. There are bloggers with really long 4C hair, and I think they still don't even really get their due when they're standing next to someone with really healthy 3C hair. So it's really important, I think, that we all find ourselves doing that, but it is important to recognize who we are lifting up as our beauty ideals and if they're truly representative of where we are able to get to and to go. And in a similar vein, don't take diet advice from someone who's just like, I eat a large pizza by myself every day and I weigh 125. You could do it too. It's like, all right, well, that's not the person that I'm going to go to for advice. I really have to go with someone who has a very similar journey.
Some of us just need to be hit with the facts.
From a science perspective, what's already predetermined. So there are certain hair characteristics that are already predetermined. So the number of follicles that you have, that's never going to change. You're only going to have a certain number of follicular openings on your scalp. The density of the hair strand, the thickness, we might have discussed this in the last video, but a hair strand can have either 2 or 3 layers. Some people only have 2 layers, the cortex, which is the inner layer, and the cuticle, which is the outer layer. Some people have 3 layers. They have a cortex, the inner layer. They have a cuticle, the outer layer, but then they actually have a third layer called the medulla. So like either you have a medulla or you don't, right? And so people with coarser hair are more likely to have a medulla, a third layer to their hair shaft, than people with fine hair. So those already are predeterminants, right? Those are things that can not change. Another characteristic that is predetermined is your growth rate. And we do know that there's varying growth rates between different ethnic groups. As you guys know, race from a science perspective is real wishy-washy, right? But if we tried to split them into 3 general characteristics, African hair grows more slowly on average than Caucasian, and Asian hair, which grows the fastest, particularly South Asian hair, grows the fastest. But it's not that big of a difference. Everyone on average grows about ½ an inch a month. With curly hair, as you know, as we've discussed before, our issue is more length retention than growth rate. Growth rate is not really holding us back. And then the fourth characteristics that is predetermined is how long your hair stays in a growing phase. That's called an anagen phase. On the short end, an anagen phase can last about 6 years, but as we get older, it shortens. This is regardless of what your ethnic background is. On the long end, it lasts 12 years. So if your hair grows ½ an inch a month, which is 6 inches a year, on the short end, if you have a 6-year growing phase, that's 36 inches of hair. Right? It's still 3 feet of hair, right? So that's not really setting us back, but that is predetermined. Those are things that, you know, medicines are not going to change and oils are not going to change, but they are going to set up a difference from person to person.
And if you're having an issue with your hair, it doesn't need to be the end of it all for you.
I get a lot of patients who come to me and they're like, look, I've seen 3 dermatologists. They told me there's nothing I can do for my hair. And I'm like, that's not true, right? Like, there wouldn't be a point of me being a hair loss doctor if every patient I just was just like, there's not much to do. I would just stop doing it, right? I am motivated and I keep doing it because I love the success stories. I love doing these videos too, because there is the other side of this where when people have been doing the wrong thing for too long, we do get to a point of no return.
Dr. Aguh is based in Maryland. I'll leave her information below. Now you know how to moisturize your hair and how to be realistic about your hair goals. But before you put that protective style in your hair, you need to watch this next video to make sure that your protective style doesn't get an F, because some of these protective styles ain't protecting a damn thing. And I'll see you there.